My daughter just passed away. What? The dumbfounded look on Neville's face as he stared at me standing in the doorway was seared into my mind. He seemed unable to process the sudden news that his daughter had died. What are you talking about? Stop with these tasteless pranks. That's not funny at all. How dare he mock me while I stood there soaked from the rain? This is no lie. How could you do this? I'll handle the funeral arrangements. I'll be away from home for a while. Goodbye. Seeing my trembling body, Neville finally seemed to grasp the gravity of the situation and exclaimed, "No way." But his reaction seemed somehow detached, as if it was someone else's problem, which grated on my nerves. As I turned on my heel, anger welled up from deep within me. I will never forgive him. I'm going to drag him down to the depths of hell. My name is Rochelle. I'm 38 years old and work at an advertising company. My family consists of my husband Neville and our 8-year-old daughter Darla. While we weren't wealthy, we lived comfortably enough. You see, my advertising company paid well, and compared to my friends working corporate jobs, I earned quite a good salary. I never had to worry about monthly spending money and could even save for Darla's education. Even after considering living expenses and the mortgage, we had some money left over each month. Neville knew about my high salary, and perhaps it wounded his pride because a year ago, he quit his corporate job to become a freelance web developer. He said he switched to freelancing because his corporate salary had peaked, but I had my doubts about how much he could actually earn as a freelancer. Of course, I opposed when he quit his company job. I thought it would be safer to continue working at the company and receive his full retirement benefits rather than take the risk of becoming a freelancer. However, Neville insisted on becoming a freelancer, and in the end, he got his way. After becoming a freelancer, Neville worked from home every day. Maybe his salary complaints were just an excuse, and he actually just disliked dealing with the troublesome interpersonal relationships at the office. Either way, our new life began with Neville at home while I went to the office. At first, Darla seemed happy that her father was always home when she returned from school, but lately she had been looking dissatisfied. Though she didn't say it out loud, she probably felt like she was constantly being watched. Even at just 8 years old, Darla was more mature than her classmates. We were living without any major problems, but I failed to notice that cracks had started appearing from the time Neville began working from home. When Neville started working from home, I asked if he could help with the housework, even just a little. "Could you please help with cleaning and laundry, just whatever you can manage? I'll still cook the meals like before." "Huh? Why should I have to do housework?" "Well, you're home more and have more flexible time than I do. Of course, it's fine when you're tired. Just whatever you can manage." Flexible. Listen, just because I'm freelance doesn't mean I'm free. In fact, there are many difficult things. How can I possibly do all that too? What a response. Neville completely dismissed my hesitant suggestion. True, I understood what he was saying about freelancers being very busy. I knew it was more unstable and mentally taxing than being a company employee. That's exactly why I had opposed his career change. But housework isn't solely anyone's job. Especially since we had both been working up until now while I handled all the housework. I thought he could at least share some of the burden. "But I'm working too," so shouldn't we split things equally? You've been managing fine on your own until now, right? Don't start complaining now. Neville, convinced he was in the right, wouldn't hear me out at all. In the end, I continued handling all the housework as before. While I didn't think my husband wasn't busy with his work-from-home setup, whenever I came home late, Neville was invariably either sprawled in front of the TV or intently staring at his smartphone screen. I couldn't help but feel angry when he would look down at me and ask, "Is dinner ready?" as if it was only natural. What's more, working from home seemed to make him more aware of the garbage, floor, windows, and toilet getting dirty, and he started ordering me around every day saying, "Clean more thoroughly. If it bothers you so much, why don't you clean it yourself?" I'm human too, so sometimes I miss spots. Are you talking back to me? Clean up your own mess. Since it was our family home, I wasn't the only one making messes. Yet Neville kept spouting nonsensical arguments, and I was thoroughly exasperated. Meanwhile, Darla was quietly listening to our conversations from afar. "Hey Mom, Dad's always glued to his phone. I want us all to go out together on days off, but Dad always says no because he's on his phone." One Sunday morning, Darla came to me while I was making breakfast and said this. Apparently the night before, when Darla had told Neville she wanted to go out, he had refused while looking at his phone. "Is that so? But you're right, your dad is always looking at his phone. He's been on it since before you get home from work. Sometimes he's on phone calls too." Phone calls. Yes. He talks really friendly with someone. I can always hear a woman's voice. That's. From how Darla described it, it didn't sound like Neville was talking to work contacts. While it wasn't impossible that he was talking to work colleagues, I wondered who would need such frequent phone calls with a freelancer. Since I didn't know much about that world, maybe he was delegating parts of his work to others, but something about Darla mentioning a woman's voice bothered me. Could he be having an affair? It wasn't impossible. My husband had only started working from home a few months ago, and he definitely had much more freedom with his time than when he was a company employee. I desperately tried not to let Darla see how troubled I was as I finished making breakfast. Several more months passed, marking a year since Neville had gone freelance. He still wouldn't help with any housework. What's more, he had started being away from home entire weekends. He would leave saying, "Freelancers don't get days off. I'm going to work," but on such occasions he would usually dress up more than usual and even wear accessories and cologne that he normally didn't use. While I was suspicious, I resigned myself to the fact that even if I made a fuss about an affair now, he would just smooth talk his way out of it without any evidence. Besides, even if Neville was having an affair, what should I do? While I knew intellectually that we should separate, thinking about Darla made it impossible to make such a clean break. I agonized daily over whether I had the resolve to take a father away from Darla. Such was our life when a turning point finally arrived. Monday morning, I was getting ready to head to work as usual, but Darla wasn't getting up and I was worried she would be late for school. "Darla, it's morning. You'll be late for school if you don't get up soon." When I went to Darla's room to wake her, I found her looking very weak. I rushed over and put my hand on her forehead. "You're burning up. Darla, you have a fever." I brought a thermometer and put it under her arm. She had a high fever. What should I do? I have an important meeting today and can't take off work. While I was fretting and flustered, Neville came over. What's wrong? Darla has a really high fever. I can't miss work today, maybe we should call a helper. A helper? No need for that, I'll watch her. Just need to let her rest quietly, right? I can at least make porridge. It'll be fine. I was shocked when Neville offered to take care of feverish Darla. This was the same Neville who had left all housework and childcare to me and refused to get involved at all. I couldn't believe he would look after our sick daughter. But there was no time to discuss it, so I decided to trust Neville and leave it to him. All right then, I'll leave it to you. There's fruit in the fridge too, you can cut some up for her if she feels like eating. Got it. Relieved to get such a reassuring response from Neville, I hurriedly finished getting ready and rushed out of the house. Though I was terribly worried about Darla, getting to work on time had to be my priority right now. I jumped on the train, and by the time I reached my station near the office, the sky had darkened and rain had started falling, but I managed to make it to work. The meeting started in the afternoon as scheduled, but I couldn't get Darla off my mind. Just then, everyone became unsettled by the sound of heavy rain and strong winds shaking the building from outside. Come to think of it, hadn't the news mentioned a typhoon approaching? I hadn't properly checked the weather forecast lately since I'd been so busy, but I recalled the typhoon news had been playing repeatedly, and this morning's news had said the typhoon may make landfall tonight. Even during the meeting, everyone including myself seemed distracted by the typhoon's effects, repeatedly glancing outside. At 7 p.m., when I finally finished work and started heading home, the rain had gotten even heavier and several trains had stopped running. The train I had planned to take was significantly delayed, and the platform was overflowing with people. Worried about Darla with her high fever, I couldn't wait on the platform. I quickly left through the ticket gates to look for a taxi. There were many others waiting for taxis too, so I had to wait quite a while, but after 30 minutes I finally managed to catch one. After a 30-minute drive home, I got out of the taxi in front of my house and was stunned by the sight before me. Darla. There was Darla, collapsed in front of the entrance. I immediately picked up my soaking wet daughter. Darla, are you okay? What happened? Dad. Seeming relieved to see my face, Darla went limp with exhaustion. She still had a high fever, her body was hot despite being drenched by the rain. I turned back toward the taxi I had just gotten out of and knocked on the driver's window. Excuse me. I need another ride. Please take us to the hospital. Seeing my desperate expression and the limp Darla in my arms, the driver must have realized this was serious and opened the door saying, "Please get in." I hurriedly got into the taxi. I had him take us to the nearest hospital. Darla. During the taxi ride, I called Darla's name over and over. I felt I had to, or something terrible would happen to her. Though I desperately wanted to know why Darla had been collapsed in front of the entrance, saving her life was more important than that right now. The taxi made slow progress through the typhoon, but we finally reached the hospital. Ma'am, please be careful on your way back too, as conditions will likely be similar, the kind driver said as he saw us off, and I carried Darla into the hospital. Though there were many patients at the hospital, the receptionist recognized Darla's condition as an emergency and got us in to see a doctor quickly. The doctor examined Darla and told me she was delirious with fever. There were no external injuries, so she should be fine once her fever came down. However, since she had likely been outside in the rain for several hours with a high fever, Darla needed to be hospitalized immediately. "I'm so sorry, Darla. Get well soon, sweetie. We'll take care of anything that comes up, so please get some rest for today, ma'am." "Thank you." After 5 hours at the hospital spent watching Darla's pain-sleeping face, a nurse came to speak to me. Though I wanted to stay by Darla's side, the nurse was right. I had come home tired from work, then this happened with Darla, and I was exhausted both physically and mentally. I should leave this to the nurses and head home for now. This was definitely Neville's fault. The proof was that Darla had mumbled, "Dad," before losing consciousness. There's no way Darla would have gone outside with such a high fever on her own, especially not during a typhoon. The more I thought about it, the more I couldn't understand or forgive what Neville had done. On my way home, I contemplated what to say to Neville. If he heard Darla was safe, he might get cocky and pull something like this again. I had to absolutely prevent that. Neville needed to reflect on this incident more deeply than the ocean. And so, having made a certain decision, I returned home. When I arrived home in the rain, Neville was casually playing with his phone. When he noticed my return, he looked up suddenly and stared at me. "Hey, what happened to Darla? She was sleeping at the entrance, right? She said she was going to play outside." I tried to stop her, but she wouldn't listen. I couldn't contain my anger at Neville's casual statement. Darla went outside on her own. When he was the one who threw her out. I clenched my fists and replied. "She just passed away." "What?" The dumbfounded look on his face as he stared at me standing there was seared into my mind. He seemed unable to process the sudden news that his daughter had died. "What are you talking about? Stop with these tasteless pranks. That's not funny at all." How dare he mock me while I stood there soaked from the rain? This is no lie. How could you do this? I'll handle the funeral arrangements. I'll be away from home for a while. Goodbye. Seeing my trembling body, Neville finally seemed to grasp the gravity of the situation and exclaimed, "No way." But his reaction seemed somehow detached, as if it was someone else's problem, which grated on my nerves. As I turned on my heel, anger welled up from deep within me. I will never forgive him. I'm going to drag him down to the depths of hell. I left home and headed straight for a hotel. I managed to find one with vacancies and decided to stay there for a while. Though the expense would hurt, this was no time to worry about such things. I wanted revenge on Neville. If he showed remorse and changed his ways, I might reconsider how to handle things going forward. But judging by how Neville hadn't immediately called or messaged me, I could see right through to his feelings. He couldn't care less what happened to Darla. This made me even angrier, and I finally began plotting in earnest to teach Neville a lesson. The next morning, as soon as I woke up, I headed straight to the hospital. They had contacted me to say Darla had regained consciousness. "Darla, are you okay?" "I'm okay now. My fever's gone down." "Oh, thank goodness." I hugged Darla and stroked her head. Darla giggled, feeling ticklish. After a while, I got Darla to tell me what had happened. Darla, what happened yesterday? Dad kicked me out. He said, "You're in the way, get out," and a woman came in, and they were chatting happily together. A woman? What kind of person was she? I didn't see her clearly, but she was young. She had bright red nails and wore thin high heels. What a situation. So Neville was indeed having an affair. Not only that, but he had invited his mistress over on a day his daughter had a high fever, and worse still, he had kicked his daughter out. It was completely unbelievable. I couldn't understand how anyone could do something so terrible. So that's what happened. I'm so sorry, Darla. You must have been scared. Yes. But I was happy you saved me, Mom. I cannot forgive him for putting Darla through this and trying to find happiness with his mistress. My whole body shook with anger burning up from deep within me. Oh right, Dad said he's going to invite that woman over again next Sunday. Next Sunday. That's when I'm supposed to be on the company trip. He was planning to spend a pleasant day with his mistress while I was away. I was utterly disgusted, but this cemented my resolve. Thank you. That's good to know. As I stroked Darla's back, I silently vowed to make Neville pay for what he'd done. That Sunday, I decided to return home with Darla. I contacted my company and told them I couldn't participate in the trip due to urgent family matters. After being discharged, Darla had been staying at the hotel with me. Though it was our first time back home in a while, as we reached the entrance, it already felt like someone else's house. "We're home," Darla and I called out as we entered, and sure enough, there was an unfamiliar pair of high heels in the entryway. Just as Darla had said. The thought of Neville and his mistress enjoying themselves in the back room made my skin crawl. Neville wasn't in the living room, so I headed toward the bedroom. Then I heard Neville's voice coming from inside. This worked out well, though. With Darla gone, getting divorced will be easier too. How can you say that about your own daughter? But you're right, it was lucky for me. I felt dizzy hearing them talk about Darla's death as convenient and lucky. Now I understood completely. Neville didn't have an ounce of remorse. Well then, I would simply have to confront him head-on. "Excuse me. Oh, do we have company?" The two of them were shocked, their eyes widening at the sight of Darla and me appearing in the doorway. "Why are you here? You said you had a company trip today. And why is Darla here? What's going on? Wasn't your daughter supposed to be dead?" Of course they would panic seeing Darla appear before them when they thought she was dead. I explained carefully. The death was a lie. I'm sorry. I wanted to see how you would react. I thought you might show some remorse, but instead you were happy about it. That's not normal. A lie. I knew it, you worthless liar. Give me back all the time I spent worried. I let out a heavy sigh at Neville telling such an obvious lie about being worried. Don't be ridiculous. You're the one who kicked Darla out of the house, aren't you? That's not true. Darla just. Dad kicked me out. He said I was in the way because he wanted to be with that woman. When Darla immediately spoke up with the truth, the color drained from Neville's face. You did something absolutely despicable, both as a father and as a human being. While she's fine now, she really could have died. You wanted to be with that woman so badly you'd do this to Darla. I pointed at the woman who had been staring blankly at our argument from beside Neville and shouted. Don't make it sound so bad. She's just someone from work. Work? But dear, didn't you quit your job and become a freelancer? Neville's attempt to cover up with a careless lie ironically proved that the woman was his mistress. Well, I didn't really need to ask you about that anyway. Here's the evidence of your affair. Private investigators are amazing, aren't they? They gathered all this evidence in just 1 week. I thrust a large envelope in Neville's face. Yes, after hearing about Neville's affair from Darla, I had launched a full investigation. But I never expected evidence to surface so quickly. Neville wasn't very good at covering his tracks. Neville nervously opened the envelope and took out the contents, dropping the stack of incriminating photos on the floor. This is unfair. How does it feel to back someone into a corner like this? Do you enjoy doing this to people? I couldn't understand Neville's mentality at all, trying to make me the villain even though he was entirely to blame for being cornered and criticized. I pulled out the divorce papers I had kept in my bag and thrust them at Neville. Unfair? Who's really being unfair here? I see no value in staying with someone who can't even tell right from wrong. Let's get divorced. Neville's eyes went wide as he stared at the divorce papers. If he had wanted to be with his mistress all along, he should quietly accept the divorce papers. Oh, and of course after we separate, you'll be paying alimony and child support. And you'll be paying damages too. Be prepared. I turned to look at his mistress. What? Me? I never heard about this. You don't know. You destroyed a family, so you need to take responsibility. But I don't have any money. The woman frantically ran her fingers through her hair. Both Darla and I watched her coldly. Though Darla was still a child, she seemed to somewhat understand what damages meant, and she gripped my hand tightly. If you don't have money, take out a loan or whatever you need to do. You two love each other, right? Surely you can overcome this much hardship together. Don't ever show your faces to me and Darla again. You can have this house. Good luck with the mortgage payments. Hey! Wait! Though Neville called out, "Wait," I ignored him and pulled Darla along with me. While this child would lose her father, I had no regrets. Never again would I let Darla be put in danger. Darla, from now on let's do our best together. Yes. Darla smiled more happily than I expected, which put me at ease. I took Darla to my parents' house, and we stayed there for a while. My parents were absolutely furious about Neville's affair and how badly he had treated Darla. They looked ready to storm over and punch him. I managed to stop them, averting that crisis. Stay here as long as you like. Both my mother and father were very welcoming, and Darla was happy to be with her beloved grandparents. I was relieved that things seemed okay for now. Meanwhile, I had a lawyer request alimony and child support from Neville, and successfully got him to pay it all in one lump sum. Of course, I squeezed proper damages out of his mistress too. Since I doubted Neville had that much in savings, he probably took out loans. On top of that, he still had to pay the remaining mortgage, so Neville must be incredibly tight on money now. There was a colleague at my company who had gone to high school with Neville, and they told me about how Neville was doing recently. Apparently, after all that, he and his mistress had broken up. It seems Neville had bragged to his mistress about having money, so when she found out that wasn't true, she said, "This isn't what you told me," and promptly ended things. Well, it couldn't be helped since Neville's income had been cut in half compared to his company employee days. Now he was frantically working various part-time jobs on top of his freelance work. Having lost his wife, daughter, and even his mistress, Neville would spend the rest of his life struggling to pay back his debts. It was all his own doing. I hope he suffers and regrets what he did. Mom. Today at school, I made presents for Grandma and Grandpa. Oh really? Well then, let's give them to them together later. Okay. Seeing Darla so lively even without Neville made me feel happy. From now on, I would keep moving forward at my own pace together with Darla.